Okay, Jesse, this one's going to be a little tricky. I kind of feel like we're at the point where we're making the next big step, and there's two commands that I want to show you, but in order to show you how to utilize them, I have to show you a lot of other skill sets also. So I know this video will probably be a little overwhelming at first. Just take it slow. I'll do my best to slow it down, but my assumption is you'll want to go back and watch it a couple times. The good news is the video that will follow this will basically be us making the same ring with the other command. So all those little skill sets that I talk about in the middle of the video will be something that you'll see repeated over again. So if you Google stackable diamond band, one of the most popular styles is this kind of elongated marquee shape that's mill-grained in some sort of pattern. So here on this picture, you can see it has that shape plus a circle. Here you can see it's just the marquee shape. Here's the marquee shape in a circle again. If you look at this one here, so here's all that marquee shape, marquee and round. And again, you'll here it is again, just longer with a single round. So you'll be able to see how you could have made any of these multi-shape pieces with the way I'm about to show you. It'll be the same premise, but it just so happens that I need to build one of these, the all marquees. So that's the design I'm going to show you. But yeah, I mean, you can see, look, there it is, marquee and round. Very, very popular. So if you're going to do something that's not just diamonds in a straight line, it's probably going to be, in that family of design. So the main thing I'm going to go over in this video is the command Crv2View. But in order to show you Crv2View, we're going to have to do some kind of funky stuff. So in this particular case, we're going to build, well, in this and transform, we're going to build something flat and then make it 3D. So I'm going to start here in the center. Let's just pick a gem size that we'll know we use. So you've probably not used this yet, but under the gem menu on the far left, gem loader loads a single gem, just one. So you've been doing the one next to it, gems on a curve. We're just going to put one on there. So I'm going to add a 1.5. I like everything to be centered because it's really easy to mirror things to the other side. So what I'm going to do, if you remember, we always want our gems to be about 0.2 millimeters apart. I am going to move this 0.85 millimeters to the right. How did I come up with that number? It's half of 1.5 plus 0.1. So when I type in mirror and mirror from 0, come to the other side, I have a 0.2 millimeter gap between these two diamonds. So again, we're looking at these marquee shapes, something like this, right? So there's two diamonds. It's kind of hard to see perfectly, but essentially there's two diamonds, prongs here in the middle, a single prong at the end, and it's got this like almost eye shape. All right, so the gems are there. Now I'm going to put in their prongs. So I'm going to F6 prongs. So we're going to make them a little bigger, make them a little more suited. Oops, let me bring down my nudge. That looks pretty good. See, they're about the size of the gems, but I only want one on the end because I want to be able to make that eye shape. So if we go across here, end prong layout, it says 2. I'm going to type in 1. Oh, I hate that it does that sometimes. I could also type in 0. I don't know why it does this sometimes. It's really uncool. So in this, so it can be done. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to type in 0 and hit enter. So basically it puts 0 at the end. And then I'm going to ungroup this and I'm going to rotate this guy from here to there. I realize I should have hit copy. That's okay. All right, so now I'm going to mirror this one and mirror this one. Okay. So had our one prong at the end worked, we would have been good. I don't know why it does that sometimes. It's a little hiccup. It especially does it when you have stones that are different sizes. So let's say they were tapering. It's just a hiccup in the software. If that happens, no big deal. There's plenty of workarounds. There's actually an easy way to fix it using a different command, but I'm not going to overload you with commands in this video because you have enough going on with what we're going to learn today. So then what we want to do is we want to make our eyeball shape. I am going to turn off my snaps because I don't want them snapping to the prongs. And I'm going to do arc S. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hug as close to the prongs and the gems as possible. The same rule will apply for this ring as it does for bead set rings. If you remember, you want a channel that's got a gap of like 0.15 from the prongs to the wall. We want the same thing. So how we're going to get there is we're going to draw basically our shape here, and then we're going to offset it by 0.15. But that way we can make sure we're giving it that full, 0.15. And we're going to have to kind of play around with this a little bit. All right. So I'm going to scale 1D from 0, make this a little longer because again I don't want it touching my prongs or my gems. That's pretty darn close. I might need to make this a little longer. You know what's the best way to do that? I'm just going to redraw my arc. There's another way to do it, but I really am trying to avoid showing you too many commands in this video. Like that's like a top priority for me. Okay, so let's delete this guy. All right, that looks pretty good. It's probably a little different from right to left, but that's okay. We're going to solve that problem. So I want to take this and make that marquee shape or eyeball or football or whatever you want to call it. I could do two different things here. I could go to my cutters that are up here and split it by this line and then split it by this line and then mirror it all the way around. I could split it by this line, mirror it, and then trim that difference. We've talked about trim. What I'm going to do in this one, that's a new command, and again, I'm going to minimize those here, is a quad flip. So what a quad flip does is it takes an item and makes it a mirror image across all 4 quadrants on either side of 0, 0, 0. You can't always use this command, which is why I showed the cutter, plain cutters first. But in this particular case, we can. So if I click this, it's going to ask me, the highlighted quadrant is the one it's going to keep, essentially. So I like the way top left looks. So I'm going to click in top left and hit apply. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to hit join, and now I have one line in that beautiful eyeball shape. So this one hugs my gems and my prongs. We want it to be 0.15 millimeters away. So we're going to offset by 0.15, and that's where our wall should start. So again, let's look at that ring one more time. Right? If you look at it, it's just like any other bead set ring. The shape's a little different, but we have this recessed portion and a mill-grained wall. We're going to do the same thing. So I want my wall, let's make it 0.4 because I like that it's a round number. So that's going to be basically the outermost shape. If you wanted to, you could kind of finesse that a little bit over here. Maybe redraw that arc and then offset that, whatever you wanted. I'm going to go ahead, since I'm in here, and also offset this line by 0.2 because that's our mill grain line. I just want to go ahead and have it there, and you'll kind of see why later. It's going to be hard to extract an iso curve with the way we're going to build this ring. So having it there already is going to be to our advantage. All right, so there's our kind of basic shape right down here. Obviously, that doesn't do us any good. We want a ring. So let's put in a finger size. You know what? Let's make it an 8 1/4. Why not? I'm going to show you curve from 2 views. So what what we're telling the computer is I want to take one curve and lay it against a different curve. That's a little confusing. So let's see that in action. So let's build an outside ring rail. What are these? These are, oh, those are crazy. Let's make it 2, 1, 7, and 1, 5. All right, we got our outside ring rail. So both curves have to be flat in order to do this. Basically what it's doing is it's saying I'm going to take the view, the one view of one curve, one view of another, and intersect them to make them 3D. So when I type in Crv2View, curve from 2 views, let's start with the innermost one. And select the outermost ring rail. Do you see what it did? It made that curve arced along this curve. So it's still, in fact, you can't even see the difference between the top one and the lower one here. It still looks like that from this view. It still has this shape from this view. It's only in perspective that you can see where it's combined the two. Let's delete this bottom one because it did it obviously on both sides of the curve. And we're going to use that same command, Crv2View, for our milligrain line. Beautiful. And then for our outermost line, and we can delete these ones on the bottom. We don't need that. Okay. Beautiful. We can get rid of these down here. So, sorry, I'm just checking my little note, my notes, because I wanted to make sure I did this in a good order. Okay. So I want to make this solid. So I have this outer portion, but I need to make it come all the way down to the ring rail. I need this to be solid, the wells to be solid. I am going to cut this in half. And it's only because I need to sweep it. And in order to sweep it, I need 2 lines. So I'm going to split that by this plane. And what I'm going to end up with are 2 lines. Now, the cool thing about sweep 2, so far you've been using 2 lines and a profile. You can sweep to a point. So it doesn't always have to be just profiles. You have to have at least 1 in there. So in this particular case, I'm going to make a line. This will make more sense when you see it finally swept. That goes from here to here, basically the whole shape of the marquee. And when I type in sweep 2, see how it says point up here? I could type in PR, I could click it. So this is my, let's turn that off, my start point, my cross section, my profile, and then this point. So see how it went point to there, and it made the whole thing solid. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. It would have been hard to do without those points, and you would have ended up with like a little gap. But I have a solid surface now. So I need to make this, well, I shouldn't say I have a solid surface. I have a surface. I need to make it solid. So we've briefly touched on the scale 1D, scale 2D. We're going to scale 2D and copy this down and then sweep it by its lower self. So basically I'll have 1 leaf shape here, 1 leaf shape here. I'll draw a line and sweep it to make it solid. Again, that'll make a little more sense as you see it in action. So let's scale 2D. And see how it has this option to copy. You can type in C or click that. If you forget, no big deal. You can always type undo. Yes, that is a thing. You can also hit this back button here. So 0 is our origin point. So we want to bring it down and in, if that makes sense, because technically it should be angled. If it came straight down, it'd be a little clunky. So just like that. And you have to right click a second time or it'll keep making copies. Okay, so I have 2 leaves. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to have to turn on my O-snaps. I'm going to turn off the lines, the ring rails anytime I do that, just so that it doesn't try to snap to those. Okay. So we need an outside line. Ugh, I don't want to do this many things to you. So let's hit sweep 2. Let's say you don't have a curve here. It'll actually affix to an edge, if that makes sense. So there's no curve, but it knows that that's an edge. So we hit sweep 2, hit that edge. Here you can pick the curve or the edge. There's both options. It really doesn't matter which one you pick. And sweep it by that line. I could do the same thing on the other side, or I could just mirror it. And now I have this beautiful kind of solid piece. All right. So let's look back at this ring. So what we're missing now is that recessed portion. Instead of having to build a cutter for it, I'm just going to split it. And that's why we have this line here. So if I split this by the line, it makes this little piece separate. What I'm going to do, let's move our gems up. So they've been hanging out flat down here at the bottom. Okay, we're going to bring these up. Obviously, the ring is not flat and these are. No big deal. We're going to rotate them. Always rotate them by the gem here. If I rotate here, it would affect the potentially the gap, or it might not be perfectly mirrored. But if I rotate it from here, I know that's a 0.2 millimeter gap. So I'm just going to, oh, well, you know what? I got to click this prong also, I guess. Hello. Rotate. And if I wanted to be super lazy about it, I could just mirror this over. And mirror is always your friend. You know, it's even. And it's like slightly off. No one will ever notice. So I've got this surface that's separate. Let's even make it a different color. So if you remember what we did to this top shape to make it solid, we're going to do the exact same thing, only this time we're not going to copy. So scale 2D. Don't hit copy. Our origin point is 0, and I'm just going to bring it down till it's at the height of the gem girdle. So you can kind of see how that achieved the same thing that running a channel cutter did on the more traditional bead set bands, only we don't necessarily have a eyeball shaped cutter, so this is a little more convenient. All right, and we're going to make it solid the exact same way we made the outer portion solid. We're going to add a line, and we're going to sweep 2 from here. So, okay, on this particular case, it does matter which one you click, because this curve goes all the way around, but the bottom curve only goes halfway, so you do want to click the edge. And then mirror. Oh, nope, see, that only did a quarter of it. A quadrant, if you will. So if you wanted, you could come up here to your quad flip, which is right next to Boolean in the cutters. And it is in our bottom left quadrant. We could do a little bit of that. Look at that. How beautiful is that? We're going to join everything together. Join. See up here, it says it made it a closed poly surface. So that is all solid. Let's turn everything else back on. Look at that. I have not trimmed it by the ring rail yet, and I'll show you why in a minute. We're not there yet. So leave it a little long. We can always cut it by the ring rail later, but you'll find sometimes it's better not to do that yet. All right, so what's the one thing we're missing now? Millgrain. We already have this millgrain curve. If I tried to extract an ISO curve from this, so if I tried to do it in the middle, it thinks this line is the middle from the way we swept it. So if I put in extract ISO curve, let's make it a different color. See what happens? It's not gonna put a curve where we want it because it's following this bigger outer shape. That's why we went ahead and offset one earlier on. So we just have access to it now. If for some reason you forgot to do that, no big deal. You could draw it flat in the middle and then do Crv2View and it would project it right up there. We have our curve for an F6 to millgrain. All right, so let's update all the stuff. We want 0Z offset. We want them up here. We want them, I think like 0.4, is that what I made that? Into 0 spacing. Gonna mirror it all the way around. That's not pretty up here, so we're gonna do a snap to corner. See how it snaps there and there? Much, much better. As always, it turns it green, dark green. Okay, so I have the middle marquee shape, but most of these keep going all the way around. There's a couple different ways that you could achieve that. I'm going to go ahead and group all of this together, and just not the ring rails. So this is all one piece. It's easy to keep track of. If this ring were the same height all the way around, I could just rotate this and I would hit copy. And I'll show you what would happen. I would go 1, 2, 3, right? It would be beautiful. Kind of, I would just be taking the same shape over and over and over. However, this line, this ring is not the same height all the way around. And I did that intentionally so you could see a new command. So you could rotate and copy, again, go all the way around, or you can mirror it. So we want a little bit of overlap. If I put this, if I mirrored it against the outermost portion of that has no substance, right? Like it wouldn't even be attached. Really, where we want them to be attached, if you look at most of these, God, it's really hard to see. But basically, they share that mill grain bead at the point. So this bead would be at that bead. So the best place to mirror it is at the bead. So that still isn't perfectly even. So I've been doing mirror from 0. Now let's imagine we mirror it from the bead, or in this point, the end point of our mill grain. Here's what you can do. So basically it says that's the hinge point. I can make it tilt anywhere. Basically, I'm just moving my mouse until it lines up with the outside ring rail. Do you see how that is over in the far right corner? See how now it's above, now it's below. Work with me here. There we go. And it doesn't have to be exact, pretty darn close. Okay. See, I have overlap here, so we don't have to worry about the ring like cracking in half. No one can tell that that's 2 separate beads. That'll look like 1 bead when it's done. And then I would just continue all the way around. So then I would mirror this one by that same, let's turn on our O snap, by that same point. And I would keep going down until I had the appropriate span or the appropriate number of marquees. Okay. So now I can cut it by the ring rail. Sometimes when you're making it at a crazy tilt like that, you end up, if I had cut this one by the ring rail, like with a weird spot over here that's shorter than the ring rail. So I like to do that last. So basically we're going to cut these by the ring rail. Oh, it might be too much stuff for it to focus. Sometimes it likes to do it one at a time. Or it could also be that it's grouped. Ungroup. Cut by the ring rail is a little finicky. There we go. Oh, and I don't know if you know this. If you just did a command, you don't have to click it again. You can just right click or hit enter. It assumes you want the same thing again. So look at that. I can get rid of all this lime green action. What I would do here, select all this stuff, mirror it by 0 over to the other side. Look, I have 5 marquees. So basically I just had to build the first one and then transform it either by mirror or rotate, whatever worked, to do the others. I'm not going to stress out about the bottom part right now because that's less complicated. We've gone over enough stuff in this video, but you can kind of get the idea. So same rules, bead set ring. You want that little bit of a gap. We still had our mill grain. We would still want to do gem cutters. So we'd still select our gems and run a cutter through. Just like we would normally do, but you can kind of get the idea. We still have this shape on top. So the next video will be showing you how to build basically the exact same thing, just a different way of building something flat and then making it 3D.